Man, I'm grateful for the time that everybody has given us. Mika, thanks for joining. It's great to see you, and
Thanks,
I'm
likewise,
excited to
Jason.
talk to you. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited to talk to you. Yeah, I mean, we've got this idea of people who are able to run startups. That's not a new topic, but like, how do we do this in a fast way, and how do we scale fast, and how do we do things to be like sustainable, and I mean that obviously in the terms of like not implode on yourself, right? And then I think too, which is going to be super interesting for me to integrate and intertwine your business in the best way, it's like Oracle and some of these others that you're actually engaging with. So that's just to set the table a little bit. Like, that's what we're going to talk about. I'm excited to hear about it, Mika. Maybe you could just start and tell us a little bit about you and what you guys do, and how marketers and brand creators care about these things.
yeah, looking forward to it, and also excited to be here. Thanks, Jason. So if there are any marketers here, then I'm sure they've had the pleasure of scrambling for creative gifts or picking and packaging them themselves and trying to figure out how to make those gift efforts actually actionable and measurable. Because at the end of the day, we're requested for proof. So what we do is pretty much gifting and technology. Through our platform, we connect the originally untraceable engagement of gifting and impactful conversion. And we truly partner up with our clients to help them successfully gift, which I think is the underlying thing here today. Also, we'll get to it probably regarding Oracle, but generally, no more inundated gift choices and more thoughtful gifting that makes an actual impact.
So, well, talk to me more about like this gifting, especially for our non-marketers. Like, do you mean gift? Do you mean like real gifts, like human nature, a part of the experience to build relationships? Is this kind of what marketers know? Like, talk to me about that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's not just marketers, right? As people, as marketers, as CEOs, as companies, at the end of the day, it's really all about relationships. And do we have good relationships? Are they strong relationships? Will those relationships stay? And gifting just isn't new to those dynamics. So it could be offline gifts, it could be online gifts, but just the experience of gifting, if you will. The power of gifting really is nuanced with creativity and thoughtfulness, but that's not new to us. It's pretty much like any other marketing channel that we need to think through these things. Only with gifting, it literally stands out of the crowd, right? So it's either physically standing out and being in front of you, or adding that extra something special to the interaction. There's no one I know that doesn't like getting a gift. That really, that sort of adds that spark. And I hate the term soft skill, but I guess it's commonly used. So that's sort of the soft skill of gifting, right? The thoughtfulness, the creativity, that extra mile that you sort of give into it. So what we went ahead and did at Outgage, besides the soft skill, was add the traditional marketing tactics to combine gifting with actionable landing pages. And that's where it really gets interesting and measurable. So besides being able to track shipping, you're opening a world where the user experience can be discovered and actually chosen by the recipient versus like sending them something and pushing on them with a sales follow-up immediately after getting the gift. So that's really where you can start optimizing it. What we're giving specifically, we're starting with marketers because they're the ones who really get into the tactics of these campaigns. But at the end of the day, what we're giving them is really control and visibility over these types of campaigns that can really exponentially increase their engagement, just grow their marketing pipeline, with real relationship building tactics and in turn grow their ROI. And that's what the C-suite wants to see as well.
So give me a case study. Talk to me about somebody you've done this with, so we can kind of take this idea down to like, paint me a picture of what you've done with somebody in particular.
Yeah, good question. So for instance, if we take a case study that I really love, it's Zendesk, who did, they've been working with us for a few years now. And a few years back, an example that they did was a campaign targeting current customers to do a product expansion. So for instance, you might have been a customer support customer, but they rolled out a whole new suite of products, including Guide, Talk, Chat, Help. And what they did is target you and send you at the beginning, they sent it as a 2-part gift. So this was one workflow. They sent you coaster-shaped targets with the different types of products that they have. And that came with a personalized postcard that would have said something like, "Hey, Jason, in order to hit your customer support targets with Zendesk and receive a drone from us, please go to this landing page." And in the landing page, you could either download a white paper and learn more, or set up a meeting with your account manager directly through Calendly and really close that loop quickly. In both cases, you would have received a drone, which was that enticement, but also the experience itself. And what Zendesk would have seen was full funnel visibility. So not only shipping and tracking for the actual gift items, but also who went into the landing page at what time from what device, who took what call to action. They actually qualified the leads as to who wanted to take a call and who didn't. And the second time they sent out that same campaign, they sent it in a locked box. So essentially, just a drone together with the targets in a box that you had to get the code to unlock it. So same call to action. In both cases, they got over 35% engagement. The second time, they actually got closer to 46% engagement. So almost half the people who got the gift actually engaged. And it was a fun experience for everyone. So we see that as,
that's cool.
A bigger one. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty interesting. So shifting a little bit. So that's kind of what you guys do. I want to talk a little bit about how you do it, because I think some of these experiences are going to be ubiquitous to some of the people who are listening. So for a lot of enterprise companies that you're targeting, which is like a huge percentage of the startups that we work with, there are software companies, cloud companies that are trying to target these big brands: Cisco, SAP, Zendesk. I mean, these are your customers. How did you, I hate to use the word formula because that's not really a good probably word for it, but like, how did you start getting these enterprise clients, and how did you prepare yourself to scale for them? Because I think a lot of startups that I work with, they're of a certain size to where they would really love to sell to Zendesk, Cisco, us, but that would actually destroy them. Like, I don't know if you want them as a customer yet. Can you support that? So how did you scale that? How did you think about approaching them? And then how did you position yourself to scale to support a customer like that?
So it's funny because I don't think that, I think the efforts we would have put into anybody else, no matter the size, would be the same effort. So the first thing I would say is, besides it being scary, like, let's figure out who we actually need to get in front of. But the second thing is, and this might be the unpopular thing, I wish I could tell you, like, hey, we put out a Google ad and then everybody came knocking on our door and, but that's not what happened. So at this point in time today, we're very much aligned with the types of tactics that we do ourselves. So very much ABM oriented, building relationships still today. A lot of it is drinking our own champagne and doing our own gifting campaigns. That being said, the way we started was, grassroots. And I would say that this is probably a more familiar formula that I'm hearing from other entrepreneurial friends of mine as well. And at the end of the day, it is about the relationships also that you start with. So for us, the first few customers were warm intros. And we just literally interviewed the customers and understood their pain points, and it happened to align with the realm that we were looking to solve for. And that's not only how we got in the door, but also how we improved the product along the way, which I think that that's super important. Like, conversations can never end, right? So for us, it started with warm intros. It continued into building those relationships, growing with referrals, with customers that moved on to other companies, with gifting campaigns of our own. We actually had a gifting campaign where we had a discussion with a potential client, and they turned to be our customers only when they had the budget for it. To your point, like, even the bigger ones don't necessarily have, you know, that right budget, or the goal at the right time and all of that. So they turned to be our customers 2 years later, because they remembered the gift and it made that impact on them. And that specific decision maker turned to be our advisor later down the road. So I think that it is a question of, you know, how do you build these long-term relationships? And you'll need to plant those seeds anyways and keep that good karma going, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, especially hearing, like, you know, you've talked heavily about data-driven and A/B testing, but still integral part of your success, and especially cracking these really big accounts, are relationships, because it's still humans, right? It's still people. So yeah, that's really important. For me, in both my startup life and then corporate life, to be able to do big things, team has been really important. You've been able to build a really great team, like, especially your, like, exec team, right? It's like, talk about how you as a founder built that, and maybe, you know, what are some unique things about your team and how you built them together?
Appreciate it, first of all. I can't say I'm 100 out of 100 on that. I've also experienced a co-founder breakup. You know how it goes. It sounds like you've been around the block as well. But I think that sometimes they're the right people at the, you know, for a certain part of time, and then those people aren't necessarily right for down the road. That being said, you learn from that. Our CTO, we interviewed each other probably 6 months before he joined on board. He has over 20 years of experience in development, and was part of a few larger companies before he joined us. And what's funny about that, and I'll get to it, I feel like you were alluding to probably my other executive team member. I also work with my twin brother, so I've known him my whole life, obviously, where that comes into play. You know, at the end of the day, it was really important for me that our core initial team is the one that's building the culture throughout the company. When it comes to working with my brother, Daniel, who's our COO, you know, when we work with family, if it's bad, it's the worst kind of bad. When it's good, it's the best kind of good. For us, it was really the best kind, and you figure it out pretty quickly. We're very completing in our skills. I think that that's more of a personality thing than it is a family thing.
In that you're complementary personality, not that you're the same personality.
That's exactly it. Because at the end of the day, you don't want more of yourself. You know what I mean? Like, maybe to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, I have one of me already. I'm probably more of the visionary or the creative and all of that. And then where my brother comes in, he was a logistical officer in the Army. He's more of the, you know, sensible, how do we actually do things and bring it down to earth and all of that. So super helpful. And just from a personality trait, I think that it works well, and we figured it out pretty quickly. It also brings for like a no BS culture, which would be, you know, it's much easier to work that way when everybody's just straight shooting and tells you
Well,
exactly.
yeah, that's really interesting. You kind of said no BS too, because I think about the, when you do a startup with somebody, you see all of them, even more so than in kind of a corporate environment. Because you see, you bleed together, you fail together, you succeed together. I mean, you hinted at a breakup, and it could be for lots and lots of reasons why those things happen, but you see that whole person. Family's different because they know all of your secrets. They know your weaknesses from when you were 10 that they never could let go. You know what I mean? And so,
Not all of your
you know,
secrets, Jason.
so like, so yeah, I mean, do you have, what are you alluded to one reason why you and your brother work together well is because you're complementary personality wise. And it sounds like you probably know each other's strengths really well, and you can retreat when you need to and lead when you need to. What other tips do you think that you could give others that are considering family?
So first of all, for us, it worked so well that we actually have another family tie. We brought in our CTO in Varsity, his wife as our designer, because she's that talented, and we saw that it worked out well. Regarding tips though,
Yeah.
you're going to figure it out pretty quickly. So don't ruin your relationships for a business. I think that you'll know within the first month if it works well or if you guys are going to come at each other's throats, and it's not going to be good neither for the business or for the rest of your life. So, take that month, figure it out, see if it meshes or if you're just ruining it.
That's great. Well, as we kind of I mean, I feel like we could keep talking for a long time. I wish they gave us more time, but that's okay. I want to talk a little bit about us and the relationship as far as like Oracle and your kind of idea, like strategy to scale and stamina. You've been involved with the Oracle for Startups, which, side note, guys, if you're interested, oracle.com/startups to learn about how to get into our program. But you've done some things with our marketing cloud and particularly with Eloqua, so like, why has that been important for you guys working with us?
So to the point of how to get to, enterprise customers, even though we started in one way, at the end of the day, come in Oracle that's been around for longer than I've been alive, and is still growing. At the end of the day, if there's a win-win situation where we can complement larger companies like Oracle, and that's humbling for us, we obviously have a lot to gain from it. So for us, partnerships is really the best strategy in anything. It helps us exponentially grow. It helps us add so much more value to the customers that we're working with that are on Eloqua and Oracle. It brings us from being a tactical, touch point of gifting to being a strategic play for our customers and giving them a bird's eye view of how gifting can work even better for them. Like, it's great as a one-off tactic, but if you actually bring it into your omni-channel marketing, you get so much more than that, and you're breaking the glass ceiling of whatever marketing engagement you were getting before without bringing gifting into your marketing stack. And also, obviously, it gives us the awareness with where Oracle is already at, like the customers that we could get in front of. So for us, it was a no-brainer, and we were really happy to see that we also had partners on the other side that weren't only this big giant, but also super friendly and super helpful in letting us really quickly get integrated into where our market is already at.
Sure, that's great. Let me see if I can squeeze in two more questions, and then there's some questions I'd like to get to from the folks that are watching. But talk about your venture raise, right? Because that's important for scale. Money helps us scale, and that is a big part of stamina, right? Is being able to have the runway to do what you need to do. Talk about how that strategy is going for you. Any thoughts or insights, that you're experiencing right now or have?
Yeah, and I'll
the raise.
Brief. I think that there's really no one way. At the end of the day, similarly to speaking with partners and customers and all of that. I think that my biggest takeaway from it, and what I would want founders to also think about moving forward, at the end of the day, it's not only about seeing who can give you money, it's about seeing who can get along with your vision and where you want to take the company, and who could be helpful or at least harmless in where you want to take it. And Jason, I'm sure we can talk about that for hours as well.
Oh my goodness. I need to think about not just founder breakups, but investor breakups. And so anyway, that's another session. We'll get Derek to do that. We'll get Derek to do that. This is really important though, because a lot of times when I love talking about struggle, and that's closely connected with stamina. I mean, you and your brother were in the military. I was in the military. I think you learn a lot from struggle and the tension that comes with that, and the stamina, for me, was created through struggle in my life, whether it was self-inflicted or because of what I was involved in, right? So and this is a question from folks watching. How do you personally build stamina?
That's a really good question. I think that at the end of the day, for me, it's about constantly speaking with customers, and as many possible, and getting their input and their feedback, and seeing that this is something that the market actually needs. So that's sort of where I get my motivation from.
Yeah.
And that's helpful, but also we have amazing partners. So marketing advisors that we pride ourselves in being by marketers for marketers. We have amazing marketing advisors, and of course partnerships with the likes of Oracle that help us sort of get the strength that we couldn't get to with the resources that we have. So that's definitely helpful. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think what I kind of heard is your stamina is fueled by your connectedness to your customers, which inspires you to keep going and going and going. And so I think that's pretty cool. But you kind of hinted at something that another person had a question for, and it's kind of resources, because you're constantly living in under-resourced environment. Like, that's just life as a startup, right? Another lesson we probably both learned in the military, by the way. But that's another. You know what? We need to tell Derek, we just spun up 3 more new sessions for next, lessons learned from. Yeah, for sure. So it's with building team members. We talked a little bit about your core team and your executive team. Talk about your CTO. How do you think about bringing on team members when you might not have the resources to pay them yet? When do you have those conversations? How did you manage that tension? And we may have to kind of wrap up on that question, but that just, somebody asked it, and what you just said reminded me a little bit of that resourcing issue with team.
Speaking of, not enough resources and time, but
indeed,
right. Again, it depends where you're at with the startup. For us, for instance, that's a big reason of why we're built how we're built. So we're pretty much a $0 operational company that's streamlining hundreds of thousands of branded gifts and goods and virtual goods, and all of it is through partnerships. Regarding the employee part of it, you want people on your team that are big believers in what you do, and you want everybody to learn from it. At least that's my take on it. So in the early days, whatever you can't give in salary, you want them to be there for the long run. Give them a good, piece of the pie to want to stay part of it. So I think that's where options are helpful, and seeing who's in it for the long run and building your core team on your vision and coming with you in the long run. So that's great. Our take on it.
Good. Yeah. I love it. Well, Mika, I've got a whole bunch more questions, but unfortunately we don't have a lot of time. But I'm gonna thank you for spending time with me, folks that are here with us virtually. Thank you.